One of the most common questions I get is, "Hey, Victoria, I just got my CPC. Now, how do I actually get a job?" Today, I'm going to walk you step by step through how to find a medical coding job, where to look, how to stand out, and the mistakes that can keep you kind of stuck in that cycle of applying, but then not actually hearing back. I know I've done videos before about how to look for medical coding jobs, but this one's going to be targeted as a walkthrough. I'm going to show you the websites. I'm going to show you some of the job descriptions and what to look for in them. Things that employers might flex a little bit more on, things that they're going to be a little bit more strict or stringent on, things like your certifications. If you're new here, hey, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, highly encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can get alerts when I post new episodes. Today's video is sponsored by Part B News, but more on them in just a minute. Before we even get into talking about job boards, make sure you have your resume and all of your profiles, things like LinkedIn profiles, ready. Make sure that you have your credentials after your name. That is one of the top mistakes I see people make. They say that recruiters and hiring people, they will only look at your resume for a few seconds. And if you do not at the top of your resume have your name and your credentials right next to it, if you're a CPCA, for example, if they're only looking at it for a few seconds, they're not going to start scanning around going, okay, well, like it says she went to the AAPC. Is she just finished training and not certified yet? Or has this guy, expired his license? Like what's going on? So there are ways to verify credentials through things like your member ID or your last name and your email address that's registered with the AAPC. But if they have a ton of applicants and they can't tell if you're credentialed or not, you're at risk of getting chucked out, right? So you don't want to do that. Have your skills section up to date. What coding systems are you familiar with? Any specialties you know? If you have any experience with electronic medical records or health records. Did you complete an externship or an internship? Where did you go to school? You got to make sure that that's all on there. Also, one of the things that was brought to my attention recently is if you have your resume as a Word document, if someone else is opening that with Google Docs or a different version of Word, it might skew the way that things are formatted, which is why it's better to save your resume as a PDF because it needs to be searchable. And make sure that it is a nice searchable PDF, not that you just took a paper resume and scanned it in a scanner and turned it into a PDF that way. It has to be a searchable resume because they're going to put it in a tracking system. And let's say they're looking for someone who has experience with hospitalists and they know Epic, they might put those keywords in there and they have to make sure that yours come up with search. I recently posted an externship and I had someone basically they took a photo of a paper resume that they had with their phone and sent that. Those things aren't going to work in the systems that we have now because it needs to be searchable. It needs to be formatted correctly and have all the right kind of like settings to it. I personally love the Canva templates where they're cute and you can put a little profile picture in there and stuff. But I think for most medical billing, coding, revenue cycle, hospital, business type of stuff, they're not really necessary. You want to have things that are very clean and to the point. And make sure that you're staying up to date while you are applying for jobs. So say you pass your CPC, now you're applying for jobs. It's been a couple of months. Do things to keep up to date with codes and changes and things that are going on in the industry because employers are going to ask you like, hey, I see you passed your CPC 4 months ago. You haven't found a job yet. Like, how are you staying up to date? Because they want to know that you're still invested, right? So say things like I'm reading AAPC magazine. I'm going to my chapter meetings. And you can actually get a ton of great information with a subscription to today's sponsor, which is Part B News. Attention practice managers, revenue cycle pros, and physicians. Are you ready to stay ahead of the curve with the most reliable, actionable, and expert guidance? Introducing Part B News, your go-to resource for Medicare Part B coverage. Each week, Part B News delivers the latest Medicare Part B regulatory coverage directly in your inbox. Stay informed with comprehensive fee schedule updates, expert claims filing strategies, and best practices for coding, documentation, compliance, and payment. In addition to weekly news reports, as a subscriber, you will have access to the Part B News online hub. Here you can access previous issues, coding resources, fee schedules, editor's blog, upcoming events, CEU quizzes, and more. Your subscription includes 48 weekly issues packed with Medicare insights, 24/7 access to official guidance and analysis, and exclusive tools to streamline your workflow. Plus, the experts are just a click away to answer your toughest questions. And when big news breaks, you will be the first to know with Part B News breaking news alerts delivered right in your inbox as it happens. Don't wait. Invest in your practice's success. Subscribe to Part B News today and get $150 off with code CCPBN150. Subscribe and save today at codingbooks.com/PBN. Okay, so we're looking for a job. Where do we actually find them? There's a couple of websites that you need to look at. The AAPC job board, Indeed, LinkedIn, Google Career. You can go to the hospital and health systems pages directly because sometimes they have so many applicants, they don't really bother paying to post on other websites. Check physician practice groups, check staffing agencies, especially ones that specialize in healthcare like Judge Group, CSI, Norwood, I think. And also networking is super, super big in this industry. Chapter meetings, your LinkedIn connections, or even reaching out to recruiters directly or Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups for medical coding jobs that you can subscribe to, and recruiters will go in there and post positions. A lot of times it's when they're hiring for large contracts. So understand the difference between a full-time medical coding job and doing contract work. So a contract might be like, hey, we have this client, they have a project, it's 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, they might be like, okay, well, the contract is done and all the work is completed. So they might have something else for you and they might not. And you need to kind of understand that going into a contract, that this isn't going to be necessarily continually having work. They may genuinely only have a few months of work for you because you're working on a project. So let's kind of get into a walkthrough. I'm going to start with the AAPC job board because that's one that is a lot more targeted, so it's easier to start with. You can find the AAPC job board at jobs.aapc.com. They do break them down by the specialty type, by if they're part-time, contract. The extern positions are here. So if you're looking for an externship, which means an unpaid position in order to get some experience, those are there as well. Seasonal, temporary, you can find by salary range, location. If you're looking for remote work, you can just type in remote here, or you can filter that as well. And not everyone sets these up appropriately so that you can filter by entry level, because you can see here, like they don't always apply what the experience level is when they're putting in the position. So for example, we can see here that there's 1,407 jobs, but only a handful of them put in what the experience level is, because you can see there's like 16 intermediate, 3 senior, 2 manager, 1 entry level, and 1 executive. And that does not equal 1,400 jobs. But there's a lot of different positions that you can find on here. Even this one, look, they're looking for a certified professional coder, medical billing tutor. Let's actually take a look at that one right now, though this one isn't remote. It's in Houston, Texas. But we can see here they might not even be looking for, like, if you're someone who's looking to get your feet wet at being an instructor, this might be a good one for you. Let's see if they have a requirement to have a instructor certification. Nope, it looks like they're just looking for someone who has medical coding experience. They're not necessarily looking for you to have an instructor certification. And honestly, I'm not even seeing like a years of experience in here. Now, let's say I am looking for something that is remote. You can just put that in there if you're just looking for a remote position, and it'll bring up all of the different remote positions. Now, we don't have to put in any kind of special keywords or filters really here, because these is all targeted towards medical billing and coding and revenue cycle type jobs. So if we start looking at things, let's see if I'm going to kind of do this as if I'm like an entry level coder, I'm someone kind of new. Revenue cycle billing partner remote. That might be a good one. Manager medical coding auditor. Okay, here's one for Judge Group. It's for an E&M coder. So if I was looking at this and I'm scanning it and trying to figure out if this is something I should apply for, here's what I'm going to look for. They're looking for CPCs, CRCs, CEDCs, that's emergency department coding, and all these other certifications. When we look at the job description, remote, it is 8-hour shifts between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And it says the job responsibilities, minimum qualifications. There's a difference between minimum requirements and recommended requirements. So if it's a recommendation, like we would prefer to someone to have something, that's different than minimum. Like that's more of a we want you to have something, like required experience, required experience. So it says here you must have a current certification with AAPC or AHEMA, CPC, CMC, CCS, RHIT, or RHIA. Must have clinical claims and coding review post-payment provider disputes. Must have E&M auditing experience. So maybe not the best for entry level if they're looking for something that has auditing experience. It says it's more intermediate level here, but it also says 0 to 2 years experience required. So I would say if this is something that I'm looking at as an entry level person, I might still apply because even though I maybe don't have the E&M auditing experience, they might be a little bit more flexible with that because if I already have like my CPC, that might be more of a hard and fast regulation. So I would still apply to this. I think they have in here you have to be logged in if you're applying. Okay, I think the AAPC job board either doesn't like me right now or it doesn't recognize that I posted an externship position and then also may want to apply to jobs. Because everything I'm clicking on is telling me the job is either expired or I don't have permission to post my resume on. But if you have access to everything, I would just make sure that there's a part in there where I think they have you fill in like a little bit of a paragraph of like a mission statement type of thing. Fill that in because sometimes some of those little keywords that you put in there can help you kind of stand out while they're screening through the applicants in this system. Now, if I'm searching something like Indeed or Google Jobs or LinkedIn, one of the things I like to do is search for, instead of just medical coder or medical coding, which you absolutely can do, search for skill sets like ICD-10 CM or ICD-10, because that's something that they need in a lot of medical coding adjacent type positions. If they're looking for someone that just has a skill set in that, you might be able to find more of an entry level type of job that will maybe lead into medical coding. So when we look here, we can see ICD-10 CM coder, ICD-10 auditor trainer, risk adjustment coder, HIM coder, adjunct professor, ICD-10 CM coder. A lot of these, it looks like it's now starting to show in the title. Here we go, credentialed coder certified. So we're finding some smaller positions here. Pro-fee coding specialist. Let's see if I take a look at this. They're looking for someone with an RHIT, RHIA, CCS, CCSP, or CPC. And it talks about position is under the manager of professional coding. And then we want to scan to look for things like years of experience, pro-fee coding specialist. We want to verify when we're looking for jobs that it's the right type of coding that we are qualified for. So, for example, there are four main types of coding. There's professional fee coding, outpatient coding, inpatient coding, and risk adjustment coding. And some of them have a little bit of overlap, others really don't. If you have a CPC and you are only trained in CPC, that is professional fee coding. So if the position says it's hospital inpatient facility and they want ICD-10 PCS and you've never trained in PCS, that's a totally different type of coding than you are certified for. Not saying that you can't make that a goal, but it's kind of like applying for a programming position for a programming language that you don't know. PCS and CM are totally, totally different. You might be able to, if you have a CPC, though, get a risk adjustment job. Risk adjustment is just ICD-10 CM. So since you already know some CM from getting your CPC, oftentimes in risk adjustment, they will take people that have CPC or were trained in pro-fee coding. But if you're getting a lot of rejections for positions, some of them might be because they are jobs that you don't have the right qualifications for, that they're not in the types of coding that you are trained and certified in. So this position, if I'm a CPC, I would have the training for this type of position. Now, I don't see on here about years of experience. It doesn't say anything necessarily about CPCAs. So I would personally, if I was a CPCA, still apply for it and then keep track of it. So it says here that you can apply directly, you can apply on Indeed, on Monster, on LinkedIn. So ZipRecruiter, there's multiple ways to apply for this. That's kind of why the Google Job tab is nice because it combines a lot of other websites. and you can find that information a little bit more centralized. I personally would apply directly on the website if they give you that offering, because I feel like that might have a more direct link to this organization that you're trying to apply for. Make sure that you have your resume and all of that information ready. Sometimes they're really nice, and when you're applying for the position, it will read the information in your resume. Again, that's why you want to have a nice readable, like PDF type of resume, and automatically transfer them in using automation, which saves a ton of time. That's what I would do on that kind of website. You can also go, I like LinkedIn. You can filter for entry level jobs here. So again, I like ICD 10. And if I'm looking for something that is remote, you can filter by remote positions, and you can also search for things that are entry level through some of the filters. You can also get job alerts. So, say, for example, I want a job alert for any position that says ICD 10 or any position that says medical coder or CPC or CPCA. You can, after you do your search, set it to do job alerts. And that way you'll get those basically every day in your inbox or through your notifications. Profi coding, that's probably another one. It says it's remote where they're looking for a CPC, but this is probably has some years of experience requirements to it. Qualifications required. Remember, there's a difference between required and recommended or preferred qualifications. Okay, so it says they do want 3 years experience, general profi coding experience, knowledge of PC database applications, Microsoft Office spreadsheet design, knowledge of ICD-9. So so when you see on here ICD-9, what that means is no one's updated this, job description in quite a period of time because we have not used ICD-9 in many, many years. So usually when you see that in a job description, especially if it's profi coding and not like they're working on some really old abstraction project, audit, whatever from years and years and years ago, maybe a legal case, they might still be working in I-9 if it's been prolonged, but they mean ICD-10. So I wouldn't go look at that and go, "Oh, well, this is gonna disqualify me because I've never worked in ICD-9." It's likely because they have not updated this job description. Required education, bachelor, associate's degree in HIM, coding certificate program. Okay, so if you completed some official coding certificate program, equivalent experience, licensures, they want certification by CPC, CPMA preferred. Again, this is why I tell you guys, like, even if you're not at the point yet where you're like, "Oh, I definitely wanna be an auditor," or you only have a few months or a year of experience, it's still good to get those certifications, to have them in your back pocket because maybe they got some applicants that don't quite have the years of experience, but they have that CPMA, right? They might take a deeper look at that. So it's nice to have those in your back pocket when you're looking for positions. So, depending on what your strategy is, you could still apply for a position like this, but just know that they are probably looking for someone who has some more years of experience. Again, it's hard to tell sometimes when they don't specifically outline, we don't want CPCAs. They do have that years of experience, so you could still put in for it, but don't, I would say, rely too heavily on it. What I recommend is keeping track of your applications on a spreadsheet, and that way you can make some notes on here and maybe put in here like, "Oh, this position, they did require 3 years of experience, but I applied anyway just in case." And then you can see if are you maybe still getting some kind of reaction from these types of organizations anyway, or people that are saying that they want 3 years of experience, or, are they all not even responding to you and maybe you don't wanna put out that effort anymore of applying for these positions that are saying that they want certain years of experience. If you want, I will put a link to my job tracker that you can download for free in the video description. So if you want it, just go to the video description and I will have it there so you can download. And if you want to tweak it, you can absolutely do that as well. But I will have that for free as a download as a resource for this video. Now, Indeed is probably one of my more favorite websites to look for jobs because it is more simple. It's a lot easier to use. There's more filters. I just have not had the struggles with Indeed that I have had with some of the other job search tools out there. So if I search here for ICD-10 CM and I search remote, like some very targeted jobs start coming up. And some of them are medical coder, but here is like medical AR insurance specialist. So this might be one of those like foot in the door jobs that we talk about where it's not necessarily medical coding, but they're looking for someone who maybe has some of those skill sets. It says high school diploma, 2 to 4 years experience, central billing office experience required. Knowledge of office procedures. Like, let's see, it doesn't see that they even want a certification or a license or a credential. Work environment. I mean, I would still maybe even apply to this. If you're someone who's certified, and you're looking for something that's kind of more, adjacent to medical coding, it might not be a bad position to apply for. Appeal specialist, claims examiner, denial specialist, these would all be coding adjacent jobs. Coding quality analyst, that tends to be more of a higher tier one. When we talk about quality analysis or quality checks or auditing, those typically are ones where they do want more experience. They're looking for someone who maybe even has advanced certifications in medical coding and stuff. If you're entry level and you see medical records coder 2, that again is usually more of an advanced level. You can still take a look and see because I've seen some organizations that will say a level 1 is someone who has a medical coding certification, and a level 2 is maybe someone who has 2 certifications. Different organizations have different tiers of what's considered a level 1, 2, or 3 coder, what's considered a senior coder, and so forth and so on. So you might find even here risk adjustment coder. If you love ICD-10 CM, that's all risk adjustment. Senior medical biller and coder, again, if you're entry level, probably not at that senior level, but you can filter here. If you are entry level and you want to filter by that, you can have the no experience required, and it'll give the jobs that likely don't require experience. But again, some of that depends on the person who was inputting this job. Did they put it in correctly in such a way that it will catch that this is an entry level position? When we look, we're not finding as much stuff here. We've only found 2 jobs that are filtered for being no experience required: remote outpatient coder full time and clinic coder full time. Clinic coder, sometimes when you see clinic or clinical coder or hospital coder, that's more hospital inpatient. So you really kind of have to look here about this. So they're looking for an RHIT certification, it looks like up here. So here for minimum requirements, we're seeing more things that look like hospital inpatient. HIM, a HEMA, RHIT eligible, CCS, a HEMA coding certification preferred. But what would really be telling is if it starts talking about DRGs or ICD-10 PCS coding. So that would definitely tell us that it is a hospital position, but to me it looks based off of the fact that they're looking for CCS, more hospital inpatient. See, they just say ICD-10. They don't say ICD-10 PCS or CM because those are 2 totally different codes. But usually when you see that clinic coder, it tends to be more hospital billing and facility coding. But one of the other reasons I also prefer Indeed is because here it's like, oh, here's some other jobs you might like, and we'll give you these recommendations. Fee for service coder, Profi hospital multi-specialty coder, orthopedic coding specialist. Now that's facility and profi. So again, this is going to be DRGs. This is going to be ICD-10 PCS. So if you're not familiar with PCS, you don't have quite the qualifications for that. It's not the same as CM. So I would go through these different websites. I would apply smart, kind of look for some targeted applications. Don't just throw 50 random ones, your resume, and just kind of like cross fingers and wish for the best. Keep a little bit of a tracking. And that way you can see if there's any trends, if you're applying for certain positions and you're going, oh, yeah, I'm definitely not hearing anything back from these. Keep track of those links so you know that you're not doubling up on your work, that you're applying for the same position on ZipRecruiter and then also applying for it on Indeed and then also applying for it on LinkedIn. But keep up with your networking. Attend some local chapter events, virtual events, follow up with people, get on LinkedIn, start engaging with people. Keep your resume up to date. Make sure that it's suited for the applicant tracking system. Have it in Adobe so that formatting doesn't get messed up, so that it's still readable. And keep practicing your interview and be ready to talk about coding scenarios, your training, why you want to be in this career. If you need interview help, check out the video that I will link at the end of this one. Now, getting your first coding job isn't always instant, but it is 100% doable if you have the right strategy. So stay consistent, be open to some of those stepping stone roles like working in billing or charge entry or some of those coding adjacent revenue cycle positions and keep building your skills. You can do this. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.